Teens on Nintendo pretty much ran out of games from the NES and Super Nintendo libraries that they could spice the Switch's online service up with. They were gonna have to add some new consoles if they were gonna have the audacity to ask us for more money. Well, that or add dedicated servers, but I mean, As we all know though, Nintendo did end up adding games from 2 new consoles, with the 64 being one of them. However, rather than the other games being from one of Nintendo's other consoles, the above-average-sized Den actually decided to pay Sega extra money to license titles from the Genesis. And with even more Genesis titles piling onto the service as time goes on, I can't help but commend Sega for making out like bandits. So sit back in your Sensei Ricky's futon and allow me, YouTube's 4th least sexy man, CameronAllOneWord, to tell you how Sega's kinda ripping Nintendo off with Genesis games on the Switch's online service.
Cameron, all one word. Cameron, danger. Oh no, it never fails. He'll take the clues and find the where's and why's and who's. Cameron, all one word. Cameron, danger. Cameron.
Alright, so let me make it abundantly clear that I think the Genesis games absolutely do make the online service better. In fact, I've actually been playing Castlevania Bloodlines on it for the first time ever, oddly enough. And don't worry, I am using save states responsibly, of course, but it is nice to not have to play the entire game in one go since I gotta work every day to pay those dastardly child support bills every month. You know what, just because these games aren't worthless per se, it doesn't mean that Nintendo still isn't getting ripped off here. I mean, adding more good games is never a bad thing, but is there anybody out there who honestly thinks that even one person decided to pay extra for the expansion pack just to have the option of playing Genesis games? I mean, sure, somebody's gonna lie about it in the comments, but, like, it can't possibly be true, right? After all, there are like 98,000 ways to play Genesis games in the modern day, even on the Switch, no less. I mean, surely everybody who was dying to play Genesis games already bought the Classics Collection or one of the mini consoles by the time the expansion pack came out, and seeing as how Nintendo doesn't own Sega, that would mean that they'd have to pay for all these games to be on their service. Granted, I don't think many people are upgrading for the 64 games either, but at least Nintendo owns most of those games, and even with something like Banjo-Kazooie, there aren't countless other ways to play it, given that Nintendo 64 emulation still kinda sucks somehow. And most Switch owners don't even have an Xbox to play it on Rare Replay, so honestly, seeing Banjo-Kazooie on the service is pretty cool. Maybe this is just me, but I kinda think it feels a little bit special to finally be able to play Banjo-Kazooie on a modern Nintendo console again legally, outside of having the guy at Circuit City hacking your console for you anyway. So in cases like this, I really do think it's worth it for Nintendo to pay a little extra out-of-pocket to add a game to their service. And I mean, how much can one 20-year-old game cost, you know? And again, I have no earthly idea how much Nintendo paid Sega for the Genesis games after doing extensive research on Google involving so many searches that I lost count. All I know is that it was at least 2, but it could have been as high as 3, I really do forget. Almost definitely wasn't 4. Despite having no idea how much Nintendo gave Sega for the Genesis games though, I can tell you that if it was more than like $50, then it probably wasn't worth it. The only possible reason I can think of as to why somebody would pay for the expansion pass just to play Genesis games if like they were in the middle of one and extended the plan just to play for one more month so they could finish it. But even then, how many people could this possibly apply to? I mean, yeah, I have been playing Castlevania every now and then for like a few minutes whenever I'm taking breaks from watching Time Cop marathons on the Dirt Bike channel, but at the end of the day, I gave for the expansion pass to play the extra courses in Mario Kart, mainly because I'm optimistic that the upgrade's gonna come with more DLC like this later on for other games. And if it doesn't, then you can bet your, noun that I'm canceling, regardless of how many casual playthroughs of retro titles I'm in the middle of. And I'm well aware of the fact that not everybody's got the Genesis collections, and I'm genuinely happy for everyone who's been taking advantage of the convenience of these games being on the Switch's online service, and maybe even enjoying something they've never actually gotten around to playing before. I don't know, I just think there's better things Nintendo could have spent the money on than what they paid Sega is all. Like what, you ask? Well, aside from dedicated servers with 3 exclamation points and 2 number 1s because I mistimed the pressure on my keyboard out of sheer excitement, I think some original games would actually be pretty cool, even if they were more on the simplistic side. Hell, you could even add a few of those Game Boy Advance cartridges that play like one episode of Dragon Ball GT in terrible quality just to get a good chuckle out of it. I mean, sure, nobody would want to watch it, but at least it'd create a little bit of buzz to the service, you know? I'm kidding, calm down. But I mean, Nintendo, you really should probably think about it. But if the above-average-sized Den really wanted to add a third-party console, though, then honestly, I think the TurboGrafx 16 would actually have been a better choice. Sure, these titles might not have the same name value as a Genesis game, but again, nobody's upgrading to the expansion pack to play games that have already been re-released like 50 times in the past 5 minutes, so why not add games that might at least gain like 10 more subscribers? I mean, I could easily picture someone saying, what's this? 8.5-ish bit games that I've never played before being touted by Nintendo as premium? Well, golly gee, let's see what this is all about. And for those of you who've never played TurboGrafx games before, I can promise you that they're pretty damn incredible and offer a ton of variety and quantity, especially for everyone who lives outside of Japan who missed out on all the exclusives from that region. And the best part is that you don't even need to know how to read to play most of those exclusives.
Kid can't even read.
That's right, even this kid can play Japanese TurboGrafx games. Hell, even some of the English ones too. That's how good this console is. And even for the Japanese TurboGrafx games that do require reading, just hire some man to translate it for you, Nintendo. Hey, people translate games for free all the time without so much as a thank you, so just give one of them like 10 bucks and they'll be happy to help you. In fact, I bet you they'd let you keep that 10 bucks if you just credit them as some weird alias. But I even think that more third-party 64 games would be more enticing than Genesis games. Hell, I even just got a comment on it as I was writing this video. I mean, 64 had emulation issues, and also given the fact that most of these games haven't been released since their heyday, they are pretty in demand right about now. I already own all the 64 games I'll ever want to play, so it's no poop off my butt either way, but there is a reason why Genesis games aren't worth nearly as much in the aftermarket as 64 games are, and that's because they just won't friggin' go away long enough for us to miss them. Meanwhile, the best way to play 64 games is still to own actual cartridges and hardware. And also a good HDMI adapter if you don't feel like keeping a CRT TV around anyway. Nothing wrong with it if you do it, but I just don't have any room in my dusty-ass apartment for more than one TV. To be fair to Nintendo, though, Genesis games do offer like 1,000 times more value to the service than some of those random NES and Super Nintendo games they got from third parties. So, you know, Sega's not the one who ripped Nintendo off the most here. And it's always good to add something to the service that make people spend more time with it so they don't feel like they're getting ripped off paying for something they don't even use, but I just question the choice of Genesis games in particular from a business standpoint, is all I'm saying. More power to Sega for making out like bandits by giving Nintendo sloppy seconds on offering these games on the Switch, but I don't know. I just think there would have been more impactful ways for Nintendo to spend whatever it was they paid Sega is all, yet we keep getting more and more Genesis games while Sega keeps selling them separately in the same platform. Even the ones that aren't in the expansion pack yet will still probably end up showing up at some point, like the ones in Sonic Origins that are being sold for way too much friggin' money as it is. Obviously, I'm not complaining about getting more games added to the Switch's online service. I just don't understand it from Nintendo's point of view is all. But who knows, maybe they really didn't even pay all that much in the end after all. Maybe it was 50 bucks, maybe an HJ and a cigarette, I don't know. But anyway, that's all for today. If you got a kick out of my rambling though, then you should check out my video where I ranked all 26 Green Hill Zones in the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, but if you'll excuse me though, I gotta go wash my I can't say hands? Later.